What's up, guys? It's me again, Christian Rodriguez, and today I'm going to talk about why power is never, ever static. So, earlier today, I was just thinking, I was just, I was brainstorming, I was thinking about, it just came up to my mind to talk about this topic because I'm going to bring it up at the end, like why I got that idea, but, because I have a little case study for you to finish this off, but I was really thinking, power is very dynamic, right? And it's something that people often underestimate. People constantly overlook it, right? They don't really think about it. They don't think of it in the long term. They think of the short term, right? So today's janitor, right? Today's janitor could be tomorrow's successful CEO, right? That sounds insane, but it happens more often than you think, right? You think today's peasant will be tomorrow's king. It happens, right? And why do I bring this up? Why do I say that? Am I saying this just because just to start off the video? No, I'm saying this because you could literally create a lifelong enemy, right? Someone who's inferior to you, someone who's below you, right? Someone who's in a weaker position than you, or maybe even physically weaker, right? You disrespect them, you slight them, you belittle them, you make them feel small, whatever it is, right? You're like, I don't give a fuck about you, right? Then you end up creating a lifelong enemy. Maybe you end up doing something and that person never forgets because that person was already ambitious. You didn't know that, right? But that person might have been already ambitious. And then years down the line go by and he comes back and he's stronger than you and you need him for something. And now he's in the power position. And then you realize, oh shoot, why doesn't he like me for some reason? What did I ever do wrong to him? Oh, he knows. He knows what you did wrong to him. And I talk about this because in one of the laws, right? One of the laws in 48 Laws of Power, I don't remember the freaking number, but it's the law is called know who you're dealing with. Don't offend the wrong person, right? And he says it, Robert Greene says this law. He brings it up because it is so fucking true. You do not want to offend the wrong person. You don't know who you're dealing with. You don't know who that fucking person is, right? And this, I just say this because everyone just assumes that the person in front of them is always going to be that same exact person. You don't know who the fuck that person's going to be. So that's why you gotta be your best and don't be a pushover, of course, but be as nice as you can to people. Be as respectful as you can to people, right? Because yeah, it can have long-term consequences. That's basically it. And then my next point, right, is it's good news for you. Why is it good news for you? Because because now if you're that inferior person, right? And regardless of what you do, you have a chance to use that to your advantage, right? So you could use your past slights, you could use your past betrayals, right? You could use whatever it is that you felt disrespected or belittled, felt small, whatever it is, even bullied, whatever it is, you can use that to freaking drive you to work your nuts off to surpass that person, even if it takes years, right? I'll give you a small example of this, right, in my own personal life. Remember once in college, right, I was told by so I was in college, there was a guy in my dorm. I remember earlier that week I ended up working out with the guy in my dorm, and I was going to the gym, I was strong, but I was still not fully developed like I am now, right? So I was strong, but I wasn't I was like a gym goer. I was like a gym bro, right? Whatever. And I remember I did an ab workout with him, right? And it was tough. I was really struggling because I wasn't used to working on my abs. And then I remember we were at the dorm, we were hanging out, drinking, whatever. And then he was like, "Oh, you have a really weak core." And that right there like struck a nerve because I knew that. I knew it was a weakness, and I always wanted six pack abs, and that was something that he said that, and it really bothered me, right? Like I took it personally. Like I was pissed, genuinely pissed, right? So I remember that upcoming summer when I got home, I did everything in my power to get abs. I cleaned up my diet. I wasn't drinking alcohol. I was hitting the gym. Well, I was already hitting the gym 5 days a week, but at the end of every workout session, I would do some sort of core workout, some sort of ab workout, right? I started doing more cardio, even though I hated it, right? I was doing more cardio like on a Stairmaster. I was I cleaned up my diet. That I probably mentioned that already. But yeah, I was doing as much as I can. I was doing any I was even trying I was even it was a summer, so I was even intentionally walking to places just so I can get extra cardio in so I can burn more fat, right? So I could burn more calories, right? Eventually I ended up getting six pack abs and it felt amazing. It felt great, right? But the point of what I'm saying right now is because I was pissed off and because I felt belittled, I worked hard for it. I ended up just doing it. I felt more inspired to do it than if no one said anything to me. If no one insulted me about it, I probably would have not cared about doing it. I probably would have been like, fine, I'm okay with the way I am. But so in a way, it's actually a good thing, right? When someone belittles you or overlooks you, right? And the thing is, you can use this to your advantage. That's the thing. It's it's almost like it's a gift in disguise because it allows you to work in silence. It allows you to work in silence and surprise everyone when it's already too late, right? Now that person's gonna be like, oh shit, like he actually freaking surpassed me or he did more work than me. Oh shoot. Most people don't expect it because everyone assumes that power is static. Everyone assumes that power stays the same. People just assume that you're always going to be the way you are by your current self. People just assume that. It's just like a bias that everyone has, right? And the third point is I have a case study for you guys. So I've been reading the biography of Steve Jobs. If you haven't read that book, I highly recommend you read it. It's a long read, but I highly recommend the book. I love it. I'm learning a lot about the way Steve Jobs used to think. I definitely learned that he was an a-hole, but he was also like a very great innovator. But that's not the point of what I'm talking about right now. So yeah, I've been reading the biography of Steve Jobs, and when he was first fired by Apple, right, for in favor of John Scully, right? John Scully was the CEO of Pepsi. Jobs hired him to become the CEO of Apple, and Jobs was still like there under control. And then they ended up having a fallout. And then John Scully wanted to oust Steve Jobs, and he got the board to favor the ousting of Steve Jobs. And the thing about it was that Mike Mercula, which was the first and big investor of Apple, actually was almost like a father figure, like a mentor for Steve Jobs, right? And Steve Jobs was what, like 20? He was like in his early 20s when he met him. So when his mentor, even Mike Mercula, elected to oust Steve Jobs, right? Even though Steve Jobs I would be honest, Steve Jobs kind of deserved it based on what I've read. Steve Jobs kind of deserved it because he was kind of a dick. He was an asshole. Even though Apple was doing well, he was a douche. You have to admit that he was a first class douche. But he also felt very betrayed, right? Because they ousted him. They were like, he's volatile. He's young. He's volatile. Let's let him go, and then let's have John Scully, who's more competent than Steve Jobs. So then, they oust him. That's a logical business decision because Steve Jobs is emotionally unstable, whatever it is, right? And he insults everyone, right? Well, ironically, Jobs ends up starting Next, who ends up purchasing Pixar. Pixar becomes a wild success, right? Jobs ends up becoming a billionaire from from those endeavors, right? And then what happens next? Then, meanwhile, Apple is struggling because John Scully doesn't know shit about computers. He doesn't know anything about innovation. He doesn't know how to compete with Microsoft. He doesn't understand. Like they're just getting crushed by Microsoft. Apple's straight up failing, right, in the market. So I think Apple ends up ousting John Scully, and then they end up wanting Steve Jobs back, at least as a board member or whatever. So they purchase Next, and they make Steve Jobs a board member, right? So he could help fix Apple, right, or help save Apple, right? And Steve Jobs eventually he starts off as a board member, but he's in the power position in a situation because they need him. They need his innovation. They need his brains, right? They need him to innovate with the Mac. They need him to bring Apple back to how it used to be, right? And so they bring him back. He's in the power position. There's a lot of shit that happened in between, but I'm going to cut it short. He basically makes the guys in Apple, like Mike McCullough, Emilio, I might be fucking mispronouncing his name, but a bunch of other guys, a bunch of board members in Apple who ousted him. He forces them, he tells them, he makes them resign. Because he in that position, he had the power to do it, right? And do you think his old mentor, Mike McCullough, right, when he made his old decision of firing Steve Jobs, right, in favor of John Scully, do you think he expected Apple to start failing after Steve Jobs left? Do you think he expected it? No, he didn't expect it. He also didn't expect Steve Jobs to thrive after it, right? And the point is that the board members of Apple who sided with Scully ended up offending the wrong person because years down the line, they needed Steve Jobs, and now Steve Jobs is in a power position, but he never forgot the slights. He never forgot the betrayal from 10 years earlier, so he got his revenge. And I know this sounds like some movie shit. This sounds like stuff that only happens in TV shows or movies because that's where you usually hear it. This shit happens in real life. It happens more often than you fucking think. Excuse my French. It happens way more often than you think. It happens very often. That's the point of what I'm trying to tell you. So the point of this video is that power is dynamic, that you cannot just be naive. You cannot be naive, and you can't just assume that the person that's in front of you is always going to stay the same, right? Especially after a slight, after disrespect, right? You might be waking up a sleeping giant, and I'm just telling you this to protect you, right? But I'm also telling you this so in case you're at the receiving end of a slight, you can use it as a way to make yourself the best version of yourself, right? And yeah, I don't even need this. But seriously, be aware of it. And yeah, I'm gonna leave it at that. Thank you guys so much for watching. Subscribe and take care.